Hey everyone, welcome to the SoPro Brief. I am Luann Edwards. I'm the founder of Socially Professional, a social media marketing consultancy. And I started the SoPro Brief to talk about the ways that we make human connection and community through technology. And so today, I am excited to welcome my friend and colleague, Tomeeka Miller. Tomeeka is the creator and founder of the Mohawk Mama podcast, a podcast centered around the experience of mothers in the time of the pandemic. And I wanted to invite Tomeeka along to talk about her feelings about the podcast, why she started it, and the impact that she hopes it will have. So Tomeeka and I met when we worked together several years ago in social media management. We also have young daughters with big personalities who are a lot of fun. And I'm really excited to welcome her here today. And if you're joining us on the replay, welcome. We're so glad you're tuning in. As we go through, please feel free to ask questions in the comments or share your perspective in the comments. And if it's during the replay, we'll answer them afterwards, but we'll try to answer what we can in real time. So please join me in welcoming Tomeeka.
Hi, Luann.
Welcome, Tomeeka.
Hi, thanks for having me on. I'm so excited to be here. Finally, we made this happen.
I know. So welcome to the SoPro Brief. As you probably heard me say, we are having conversations around connection, communication, and using technology to make those connections. So I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about yourself and the Mohawk Mama podcast and what got you started. Like what made you feel like now is the time to create this podcast?
Yeah, I feel like we need an hour, but I will try to do my best to make it succinct. So yeah, my background is that you and I work together. We're both social media managers in our professional lives. And I've done that for a number of years. Absolutely love it. And I saw this podcast opportunity with just the COVID-19 quarantine. Everything happened so fast, right? And it's already been a year, but there were so many moms on lockdown. We're homeschooling our kids. We're trying to work. We're trying to do it all, like keep up with our chores and our housework and be wives and be on all the time. And no one was getting like any breaks. And it just got to a point in the beginning, I think we all like out of the gate, we were like, oh, this is great. Like we can do it. We're fine. And then I personally hit a wall and I was like, I can't do this on my own. And I'm sure there are other people going through this. And about halfway through, my husband was deployed. So he is in the Army and he's deployed in the Middle East right now. So I basically became a single working mom and I didn't even like know where to begin. So because of my background in social media and the fact that that's kind of where I turn for community and just guidance, I thought that social media would be the perfect platform to have this discussion. I noticed a lot of employers were having the discussion about health and safety, but so many women are leaving the workforce in droves right now, and no one's really having that conversation about motherhood and like, what does that look like right now, and how are we adapting, and what are we doing for ourselves? And really started the podcast to answer that question, like, moms, what have you done for yourselves lately? Because no one could answer it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. And I was doing a little research because I've seen headlines about women leaving the workforce because of the pandemic and its impact. And there was a statistic that I saw in an article from the Department of Labor, 2.5 million. That's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
And it just shows that it's real. It's real. We feel it, but there's statistics.
And I was noticing a lot of colleagues were like posting even on their LinkedIn profile, like currently taking a leave of absence due to the quarantine, which I had never seen anything like that before. And it's very real. Women are the primary breadwinners and caregivers in a lot of households, right? So this has a social impact and the economic impact as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's giving people a way to connect where we have that shared experience and we feel, because the pandemic by its nature made us feel more alone because we needed to be safe, right?
Right.
We needed to have literally like distance. And so I just think it's such a great opportunity that you've created this way for people to connect and to feel like okay, it's not just me.
Thank you.
And get ideas.
Yeah.
And get ideas of like, okay, how do we work together, or how do I work, on some of these challenges?
Right. Definitely.
Yeah. So tell me about the podcast format. Why did you
Great
pick
question. So when I first met you, I was working in Rhode Island, right? And I was commuting from Boston, and I was doing Audible, which made sense, audiobooks, because of that long commute in the car. Then I started working in Back Bay, taking the T, and all right, so I switched to Kindle, and I'm like, like swiping on the MBTA. And then after all this happened, I noticed I was having like no time to listen or read anything. And I just felt like all I was hearing was like YouTube cartoons in the background and like doing a quick Yahoo news scroll, but not really knowing what was happening or like how to tune in. So I found that podcast gave me an opportunity to really like be able to multitask with my 3-year-old toddler, while also being able to like take those little nuggets of information that I needed from whatever it is, whether I'm like logged into something career-wise or marketing-wise, or even just church. And it was interesting, the format, because I had one listener say, I just logged in, another mama, and she's like, I logged in and loved it. I was listening while I was folding the laundry. And that's very real. Like, we need to meet listeners where they are right now. And a lot of people a lot of mothers don't have the opportunity to sit down and watch video like we used to.
Yeah, I always think like this time frame, time has a different quality to it.
Definitely.
And so, yeah, so having it that on demand, and I'm not sure if I've shared this with you, but when we don't have the time to pick up the phone and have a conversation because we have all of these things happening in the background, it's still a nice way to connect with you through the podcast. It's like, oh, I hear this voice. I love this wisdom. Like, oh, I can't wait to do this in person, but this is really nice.
Yeah, it's just another touch point, right? Because I do know I need to pick up the phone and call you, and I'm like, I know we'll get there, or I'll send a text eventually. But it is another just great, like, immediate way to connect.
Yeah. So we got a couple of hellos. Hello, Jennifer. Hi, Sterling.
Hi, Sterling.
Great to see you all. Thanks for watching with us.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing a comment with us. Again, anybody who's tuning in, definitely share comments or questions, or if you're experiencing something that we're talking about, or you have a question for the Mohawk Mama and the Mohawk Mama podcast, please go throw it in the comments. So let's talk about audience feedback, because I am sure this is resonating with a lot of people.
It is. It's like scarily so. I think I told you I was off this week from work, but I'm like working because I have been doing podcasts and interviews and like research. And I really didn't expect it to take off. I was like, let me just sound off on how I feel in an authentic way. But it's really resonating even more than I thought. And in terms of audience feedback, I'll either get on Instagram, I'll get DMs or messages, or people will shoot me a text and be like, thank you so much for talking about this. I really can relate to your message. And or I'll do the occasional poll, which is really fun on IG. I'll say, what's your main concern right now? Or how hard is it for you to raise children during the pandemic? And people give me topics and ideas that way, which I absolutely love. One of the things that I thought was really interesting from a poll that I did recently was, I was asking about young kids in pandemics, and a lot of toddler moms were like, oh, they're crazy. Like, help me. I don't know what to do. They're nuts. And then the moms of older kids, like, I had this assumption, right? Because I have small kids. I had this assumption like, oh, they're cruising, they're on their pod, they're just tuning into virtual school. And they were like, I can't get them to do their work. It is even harder. They need more than they did when they were like 3 and 4 years old. So I thought that was so interesting. Like, so I get feedback that way, which is really like diversifies it. It makes the topic kind of more holistic, and we get to have conversations with younger moms and older moms and get that those nuggets of information. The other thing that I think is so funny, the very first episode I did was, moms, what have you done for yourself lately? And I talked about purchasing this car that I had always wanted. And it was like just a little story about how we tend to put things aside as mothers for ourselves because we think we don't deserve them. There was no reason I shouldn't have gotten the car. I just felt like this in the back of my head, oh, I don't really need it, right? Because that's what we do. And I went to drop my daughter off at daycare, and her daycare provider, when she checked us in, was like, did you see my new car in the parking lot? And she's like, I did it. I got the car and I upgraded. And I'm like, yes, but that's so awesome, because I'm not saying everybody go out and buy a new car, but it's just really cool that women are listening and thinking about these things. Like, what can I do for myself? And it's okay to just enjoy life sometimes and have a little something extra for myself.
Yeah, I think especially these days, right? And I say these days because it's like these unprecedented times,
Yeah.
unusual times, but right, like the past year, like these days,
Yeah.
we are looking at everything and thinking, well, do I have to?
Mm-hmm.
But if all of the other things align, like we need to do it. We
Yeah.
just need to do things that bring us joy.
A little bit of joy. Exactly.
Yeah. And you need to sort of celebrate your work and your successes and your wins. And that's a way of doing it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. So we have a comment from Allison. Wanted to say thanks for joining us, Allison. Great to see you.
Good to see you.
It is so fun to be live because you get to see some familiar faces and new faces. And so what do you wish mothers knew? That's my next question.
I love this question. And I had I have a pen in my hand because I was like, oh, I have so much to say about this. My first, I guess, point is you don't have to do it all. Like in the beginning of this, I thought I had to be Wonder Woman, and you and I both love Wonder Woman, Luann. Like there's a Wonder Woman figurine behind me and like hanging up there. You guys can see. But that's like so unrealistic at this point. Like you don't have to be Wonder Woman. You're not supposed to be. You don't have to be perfect. Your house can be a mess. You can leave laundry unfolded. It's okay to have a child in the background on a Zoom call. And it's okay to just be like real with your employer and tell them your situation. And those are the authentic conversations that we should be having. Also, it's okay to let things go sometimes. I know that I'm like very perfectionist. I want things the way they are. I want to be on the schedule. I want to like have events that I go to with my daughter, and but sometimes like the plans, it's exhausting for us. It's exhausting for the kids. It's like exhausting for the teachers, and we have to be kind to ourselves, and it's okay to just like let things go. I think last weekend was the first weekend we like stayed inside for a full Saturday, and I was like, oh, this is amazing, because I hadn't done that in so long. And then, the other thing is we only have one life, and I think just enjoy it, whatever that looks like. Try not to spend it working and worrying the entire time about what's going to happen, and just try to be in the moment and enjoy your life.
Yeah, that's great. That's great advice. And I think it speaks to really everybody too, right? But mothers especially, because it's easy to sort of adjust your focus away from that.
Yeah.
But it's, good stuff. Okay, so let's talk about influence.
This is my favorite. And, there's so many layers to this, right? There's the part of the conversation, moms, what have you done for yourselves lately? But I think even more so, one of the conversations I have had, as you know, I've had a job change during the pandemic. And part of that is just because, look, I mean, the job that I was doing, it was all encompassing. I didn't have a lot of time for myself. It was really hard having a toddler at home and not having a partner with me in person. And I had to make a really tough choice. And I think like throughout this, I've been getting a lot of like workplace surveys about our health and our safety. Like, what do we feel comfortable with going back with? Like, how many days a week will we go back? What does that look like? But I think one of the things I have not heard is like, okay, moms, what is it going to look like for us when we go back? A lot of us have been home with our kids. A lot of us are enjoying the time home with our kids, right? We don't want to go back. And studies have shown this is working. We can all log in. We can do, most of us, right? We can log in. We can do our work remotely. We're more productive actually, and working even harder and more hours than we ever were, which is not always the best thing, but it can work. And I think we need to have a conversation to help influence corporations and employers and how they're going to address this, not just from a health and safety perspective, but from a parenting perspective. What will, like new protocols look like? And we talk about parental leave, but what does, like a hybrid work from home or going into the office or, coming in late? One of one of the things that really prompted me to take the job that I'm currently at is one of the first things I said to my manager was, this is really awkward, but I wanted to ask you about coming in or starting the day a little bit later. Sometimes my daughter, it's like wrangling cats, right? Like they're on their own schedule and I can't always be at my desk. Like I used to be there at 7:45 in the morning. That just seems like preposterous now.
So early.
It's impossible, but I was done early. And, I loved that schedule, but it's so unrealistic. And I was like, I hate to ask this, but can I start the day later? And she was like, of course. She's like, she's homeschooling her 2 boys. And she's like, they are also in a pod. I log in at 9:15. And she's like, here's another thing. I make sure all of my people take a lunch break. And I was like, oh, I made the right decision, right? This is the right place for me because they understand that this is real life. We're humans. And things don't always work on a clock. But as long as you are, doing the work, it's getting done, we can work with you. And I think like that's the conversation I would like to see employers having, not seeing women leaving the workforce in droves, but how can we work with you to help you maintain these careers?
Yeah, I really do hope that the benefit coming out of it, because there is hopefully some silver linings, right? It's been a tough time for everybody, and everybody's experiences are unique and challenging and difficult. And so I hope that employers do realize that flexibility doesn't. It can only help. It can only make things better for everybody. And I kind of laugh because there are days where I don't want to get up. Right? It's just it was a long night. Maybe my daughter wasn't going to sleep. I don't want to get out of bed. So imagine getting up and going, and then dealing with a young person who doesn't want to get up and get going.
Yeah.
So, it adds, complexity.
It adds so much complexity. And
it sounds like, we've kind of managed it, but imagine you don't have to add that extra stress, right? You have a little flexibility.
Exactly. Flexibility is a game changer.
Your day just starts in a totally different way. And I think everybody benefits from that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So is there anything else you wanted to share with our audience? Any thoughts you had or questions?
On a personal note, I think that this is so funny, the way that this all came about. So when I met you, I was juggling kind of on your maternity leave. I took over for you, right? Temporarily. And then I came back and went on maternity leave. And we both have toddlers and we're both kind of in this social media world. But I love that the conversation has done this 360 and we're still having this conversation, this authentic and honest conversation about motherhood. We're not trying to pretend that we don't have children, that we don't have families, and just trying to brush it aside. Because these are, real challenges that women face in the workplace. So I just wanted to say, on a personal note, I think there's no one I'd rather have this conversation with than you, Luann.
Thanks, Tomeeka. I'm so glad we're having this. I'm so glad you're here sharing this and sharing the Mohawk Mama podcast.
Thank you.
With our audiences, because I do think it really does help build that connection when we need it most.
Definitely.
And hopefully we're seeing light at the end of the tunnel, but who knows?
Who knows? Right.
Yeah. So we need to lean on each other. And the podcast is just a great opportunity to use the technology to make those human connections. And I love it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So I am going to put up your handle, the Mohawk Mama podcast. So if our viewers want to listen and subscribe, how can they find you?
Right. Great question. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, hop on over to @themohawkmama. And then if you want to listen to the actual podcast, I would love to have you download us. You can go anywhere you find your podcast, whether that's Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, and you can subscribe, and you're going to find it at the Mohawk Mamas with an S. So it's Mohawk Mamas podcast and at the Mohawk Mama on Instagram. And, I love to hear from you. So please shoot me a note or a DM and just keep that great positive feedback coming.
Tomeeka, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for the Mohawk Mama podcast. And and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, friend. This was awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. So everybody, thank you for joining us. Again, I'm Luann Edwards. I'm the founder of Socially Professional, a social media marketing consultancy based here in Providence, Rhode Island. Feel free to leave any questions or feedback you have in the comments section. Reach out if you have any questions, and we look forward to connecting again.